Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to have something similar to a story time. It's something that I have never done on my channel before, and I wanted to share my autism story with you all. And to say it's my story is a bit selfish, but just since this is my channel, but it's not my story, it's my family story. Since we do have a family member with autism, and I wanted to share our story with you just because there are so many other families that are going through the exact same thing, maybe some challenges at one end of the spectrum or challenges at the other end of the spectrum. But I wanted to share our story, how we coped, how we have worked through it, how we deal with things day to day. And I wanted to do it in honor of Autism Awareness Month, which is April, which will be ending soon. But I didn't want to let it pass by without sharing our story with you. So you guys, let's get started. So starting out, I just want to say a small disclaimer. I'm not here to discuss what I believe causes autism or anything controversial of that nature. I'm just here to share our story focus. We are not really concerned about causes or why or things of that nature. To our family, it's counterproductive. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there for you guys. If that's a question or if those are going to be comments, please keep those to yourself because they have no place here on this video or in our family at all. We only care about the direction forward. Now, when telling my story, as well as the challenges that I face, this is not I don't want to say common. There is no common challenge. There is no common line when it comes to autism. Autism is a spectrum, and it goes from one side to the other, to mild to intense. And even people that are in between, they can have tendencies on one side of the scale or the other side of the scale. So I just, want people to know that my story doesn't invalidate anyone else's, and, your story doesn't change mine in any way, shape, or form, or the challenges that we all face as loving someone and having someone in our family that has autism. So you guys, getting started at the beginning. When my son, Eli, he is my middle child, and he is currently, he's 9 and he'll be a 10 this fall. But the first thought of autism or something being different about Eli came about around the 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old mark. For me anyway. I had already had a child that was completely neurotypical, and she made her, her milestones right on point, if not early, and I was concerned because of that. There were small things that I noticed right away that I had not noticed in her, and one was speech. I always assumed, because I was a stay-at-home mom and because my daughter was very, very articulate, that my next child would follow in the same footsteps because there's constantly speech around them. I am that mom that, sits there with flashcards and, plays, instrumental music and just tries at a very young age to get them to be engaged with learning and things of that nature. And that is something that Eli never really caught on to. So his lack of speech was a huge indicator for me. Some other indicators and milestones that he was missing was no eye contact. Now, he very, very rarely answered to his name. You could be sitting right beside him and just call his name over and over again. He wouldn't look at you. He wouldn't move. You literally had to tap him or do something really big to get his attention. Even at a very young age, I can still remember that he was had very OCD tendencies. Now, he was never been diagnosed with OCD, and I just don't like people throwing around terms because someone might be particular or things of that nature. But he at the time, I would notice that he would line things up. I used to play with Hot Wheels, and he had a lot of repetitive behaviors, things that would relax him, calm him, things that he liked. Like he would line up all his blue Hot Wheels and he would only roll the blue Hot Wheels together. And then there would be a line behind him of behind the blue of yellow Hot Wheels, things of that nature. Everything had to be in an order. He would roll anything that would roll. He absolutely adored anything that was, cylinder-like. He would roll a trash can. He would roll markers. If it could move in a circular motion, he adored it, and he could do that for hours upon hours upon hours. Another indicator that bothered me was he had absolutely no risk assessment at all. He was not afraid to run into the street. He was not afraid to run into the ocean if we went to the beach. He was not afraid of anything. Most children are afraid of the unknown. They don't really know how things could hurt them or why it would hurt them, but because it's unfamiliar to them, just the natural tendency is to be cautious of it. He had absolutely none of that. So at about 2.5 years old, I had noticed a lot of these things, and it was a cause for concern. Now, I went to doctors, and originally the doctors dismissed a lot of this. They said it was just a developmental delay, and because I had a daughter, and there's a tendency for girls to advance faster than boys in most areas, that they just said I was just doing way too much comparison, and I wasn't allowing him time to develop at his own pace. My mommy gut told me, nah, that's not it. So I wasn't, I didn't get irate with the doctors or anything of that nature. They were just going off of data and things that they had seen previously, or things that false alarms that they have dealt with throughout the years. But for me, I was just very continuous with my requests for more examinations, to see different specialists and referrals and things of that nature. Now, Eli's social skills have always been different than the stereotypical child with autism. We have always had him in social settings, so he's never had any adverse feelings toward it. We always went to church. He always went to, youth worship and things of that nature. I have a ton of cousins and sisters, and they all have children. So he was always around kids and stuff like that. So he didn't really draw back from social situations at all. He's always been a very social child. He has always been socially immature, but he has never been uncomfortable in social situations ever. So in between time, as I was continuing to ask for referrals, and in the back of my mind doing all the research I could on the internet, and speaking to support groups and things of that nature on Facebook, people with children with autism. In the meantime, since they did diagnose him with a developmental delay, he was in occupational therapy, and that was for 2 days out of a week. And I was really, really grateful for that, because occupational therapy helped him with his fine motor skills, which he did struggle with. His gross motor skills were great, but his fine motor skills had much to be desired, and to tell you the truth, they still do. But with autism, it's all about progress. It's never about, trying to keep up with anyone or anything else. As long as, day to day they're doing better, that's all that, really matters. But so he had occupational therapy twice a week, and this was at 2 years old. 2.5. So in my opinion, it was kind of intense. And to tell you the truth, as this story goes on and he had more and more therapies, they got more intense. But at 2 years old, you have this stranger coming into your house twice a week, disrupting, your normal family vibe of things. To me, it's a lot for a child of that age. But I was very grateful for it, because I am a huge advocate of early intervention. As children develop, and just in the human nature, as people develop, the earlier you get into good habits, the longer they last, because it'll be second nature, so later intervention, it's hard to go backwards. It's hard to relearn. It's hard to reteach something that has been ingrained in a child. So I was so grateful for that therapy at such an early age. So also at that age, we started to try to teach him to process his frustration and process his emotions, because he had OCD tendencies. He had to do things a certain way, and he had to be in a routine. And routine is good for people with autism, but the truth of the matter is that the world is not going to conform to that individual's routine. So there will be times where someone with autism is going to, for lack of better words, have to get over it. So at a young age, we tried to teach him to be flexible, and it was really challenging. But because we started early, he's definitely pliable. It wasn't so much that he would have a meltdown over certain things. Now, there were things that, were really difficult to him, and I am, so blessed and so happy that he has outgrown. At a very young age, he couldn't bear with noises. Even if we were in a family gathering, like a cookout or something, it was completely normal to find him in a closet with a tablet or under a bed, like watching a show or just playing by himself with cars in a quiet corner, because it did become overwhelming to him. We've never given him headphones to focus or to drown those noises out. This is just our family. We always want him to be able to survive without us in a real life scenario. And in a real life scenario, it's not always adaptable to be able to just tune things out. And it's not always going to be safe the older he gets to not hear his surroundings. So we have never given him headphones to try to drown that out, and he just focused on himself. We have always tried to help him and show him how to adapt to the setting that he is in. Now, if he does need a moment, he wants to go in a bathroom and collect himself, or if he does at the time when he was younger, he doesn't do it anymore. But if he needed to go sit under a table, we would allow that, but we would never allow him to shut himself off from, the environment that he was in, because we didn't think that was conducive to his growth. So at 3 years old, at this time, we got the diagnosis. It took about 6 or 8 months, as I said, going back and forth with doctors and other specialists to get him that diagnosis, and we did. And when we finally got him that diagnosis, it was a weight off of my shoulders. And it was a weight off of my shoulders because then I had access to all of the resources that he truly needed. And I know it's scary for a lot of parents, and I'm getting a little emotional. I'm sorry. Oh, I hate crying. Ugh. So, for a lot of parents, diagnosis and words are scary. But for us, it was not as scary as him not getting the help he needed and not getting things specifically for him, specifically that would assist him, along on this path, the path of autism that he had. So the diagnosis was important to us, more so than labels or anything else. That wasn't the scary part. The scary part was him not getting what he needed. And since he needed that diagnosis to have access to certain therapies that were, that have been proven successful, for their development, that was a weight off our shoulders. And I want to say to any families or parents out there that if you are intimidated by that word, don't be. If you're intimidated by your son or your daughter or, your family member being placed in a certain area with, that might have a taboo on it, don't be afraid of that. Words are just words. Labels, they don't mean anything. But if they give you access to what your child needs to develop and to grow, then just embrace it, because it is not the worst thing in the world. The worst thing in the world is them not having what they need. So now that we had the diagnosis when he turned 3, this is where a lot of the work began. We were laying the foundation for the work with the occupational therapy and with the specialists and things like that. But once he got diagnosed, he was then allowed to go to school at 3 years old. I had to part with him at 3. And I said, I've been a stay-at-home mom ever since my first child was 2 years old. So it was really hard for me to part with him so soon at 3 years old. And also, that's when we were able to receive ABA therapy. And ABA therapy is a really intense therapy. And when I say intense, it's not physical or anything like that, but it's a consistent therapy. We received it for every single day. And so my child went to school for a half a day. And after he went to school, he came home to 2 hours of therapy every single day. And this is a 3-year-old. This is a lot more schooling and education than a preschooler gets or a kindergartner gets. So that's what I mean by intense. It was just a lot on their schedule, a lot on such a young child's schedule. So at 3 years old, he went to school, and I was blessed beyond blessed. I have his teacher, her name was Miss Donna. Till this day, I remember her. He had her from 3 years old to 5 years old. And I'm telling you, I don't know if you all remember that scripture. I don't remember what book it's in, but where God tells you to be careful, because sometimes, the people that you come across could be an angel. So do good to everyone. I have no doubt in my mind that this woman, Miss Donna, his teacher from 3 to 5, was an angel. There's no doubt in my mind that God put her in front of me to comfort me and to help my son. Like, I have no doubt. Like, I'm telling you, if I ever had the opportunity, and if she wasn't embarrassed, I would kiss this woman's feet for everything that she did for my son. It came, like, she was so close to our family. She worked with him. She was such a great woman, to the point that if there was any decisions that needed to be made in Eli's therapy, in his diet, in his education, we always consulted Miss Donna first. Like, we always went to her and like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Because I cannot sing that woman enough praises. And he started going to school, and he started to go into therapy. That we saw huge changes, because he's being, I guess, that young mind is being bombarded with all these things. And he started to just come, I don't want to say come alive, but he just started to develop, and he started to push past all of these challenges that he had in leaps and bounds. I remember the first week of ABA therapy, his therapist was really big on just getting him to speak. She didn't care how she got him to speak. She didn't care what it took. She did it. This woman brought in candy. She brought in donuts. She brought in toys. Like, if she could motivate him to get him to speak, she would. I remember when my daughter would get out of school, because my son at that age, he was in love with his big sister. He still is. I think she was like, he was 3, so she was 6 at the time. She was in first grade kindergarten, and she would come home from school, and he would be so excited, and she would be part of the therapy, because he just would bring your daughter into the therapy session so that he'll want to be with us, he'll want to engage. And he didn't start with full sentences, but he started with hot, and then he started with colors, and anything that Eli liked. What she did was she incorporated that into his therapy. He liked Hot Wheels, so he learned his colors through Hot Wheels. He learned how to count through counting all of his little Matchbox cars and the Hot Wheels cars. He learned food by her bringing snacks in, because my children, they love to eat. So he learned words for food by lunchtime and snacks and things like that. And he just grew in leaps and bounds. And I can't sing applied behavioral therapy enough. Like, that's what ABA stands for, applied behavioral therapy. I can't sing it enough praises, because it just really, really did so much for my son. He went from maybe having like 5 words in his vocabulary at the age of 3 to now he can have a full-blown conversation with you. And that's not going to say that there weren't any hard days. I remember I had to hold him. He would have a meltdown because he would get frustrated with the session, when we would give him breaks and things of like that nature. And there's a thin line between your 3 and your 4-year-old having a meltdown, and then just having a plain old-fashioned tantrum because they just don't want to do. And I remember having, after some sessions, having to hold him. I had to hold him as he's having a meltdown, and he's, just not want to cooperate for 15 minutes. And I'm having to hold this child. And you guys, I don't have small kids. I am about 100 pounds, and I am 5 feet myself. My daughter, she's only 12, and she's already the same size as me. My son, like I said, my kids came out 7, 8, 9 pounds. I don't have small children. As a small woman, I didn't give birth to small kids. So, my children have always been, had some meat on their bones. I guess they get it from their dad's side. But trying to hold this this little extra large 3 to 4-year-old kicking and screaming because he doesn't want to say his colors, and I have to do it because I don't want him to get a positive response from his meltdown. I want him to know that you still have to, you can feel whatever you want to feel, but you are not allowed to react like this, and you still have to get work done, in spite of how you feel. You are allowed to take a break. You're allowed to take moments. That doesn't mean you don't get to do what is, requested of you or what's expected of you. So I remember in sessions, him having meltdowns, and I'm holding him so he doesn't hurt himself and he doesn't, hurt the therapist. And it's 15 minutes restraining someone, and it's hard work. And then even after all of that, he still has to go down and he sit down and say his colors. He still has to put, his shapes in order, and as I said, it's not always pretty, but it's worth it. All the work, all the, the tears and the restraint, and, not wanting, you understand that they have challenges, and you want to just, hold them, and you want to tell them that it's okay, but you still have to discipline them, and you still have to give them structure because they have to survive in the world without you. Okay, you guys, I got my life together. I'm going to stop all this crying because this is not a sad story. This is a story of triumph because my son has grown and he is doing beautifully. So, moving past the applied behavioral therapy, my son, by God's grace and lots of prayer, and as I say, his hard work, he grew out of applied behavioral therapy. I guess they found it a success. And so around 6 or 7 years old, we had some evaluations where they came into the home and just see how Eli was adjusting and things of that nature. And by this age, about 6 or 7, Eli could fix, he can fix his own food, but, not like a stove or anything of that nature. He's getting better now. He can bake things with my supervision, of course. But they saw that when I was engaging with one of the therapists that were evaluating him, he wanted to eat and I was taking too long. So he said, I'll get it myself. And he wanted a hot dog. So he went to the refrigerator, he got himself a hot dog, made himself a plate, got a drink, went to his room, turned on his TV, was just chilling. And so the therapist was like, well, your son's at the age where if he can articulate his needs and he can take care of them without getting frustrated, these therapies are no longer a necessity. And especially, at the point that we have where we're coming out, every single day. So at the age of 6 or 7, when he aged out of ABA therapy, he still continues on with some of those therapies, but not in such an intense way through his schooling, through, just the regular, education that he gets at school. He continues in speech therapy, which is provided by the school. They do have a lot of social, I don't want to say social therapies, but they have a lot of social lessons. He is currently in an academic learning class. When your child is on the spectrum, they are usually when they're separated into groups at school, it's either in an autism class where they're learning life skills or where they're learning academic skills. So because Eli mastered the life skills, like personal hygiene and things of that nature, he now just does academic, where he would go to school, just like other children would, and they have things where they call integration classes, where he'll spend a little bit of time with neurotypical children. And it'll usually be something like an elective, maybe art or PE. He'll participate in those type of things with neurotypical children, and his academic learning is done with, the children in his classroom that, have autism. So the current challenges that we are dealing with Eli right now is empathy. He has a little brother. I do have a younger child, and we're working right now with being empathetic. You can't tell your brother honestly you don't feel like playing with him, but it would be nicer if you told him, I'll play with you later, so that it doesn't hurt his feelings. Or if, this story my family thought was hilarious. Eli likes to cook. And so some nights when I cook, one night when I cooked, Eli came downstairs with 3 pieces of paper. One paper had a 0, one paper had a number in between 0, and one paper had 100. I can't recall what the number was in between. But there was something that I cooked that he liked. He was like, Mom, this is delicious. And he gave me the piece of paper that had 100 on it. I also cooked mashed potatoes, which Eli really doesn't care for. And he gave me a 0 piece of paper for the mashed potatoes and told me that they were disgusting. So that's what we're working on right now. Working with him being, we really appreciate his honesty, but we want him to learn empathy where you just don't say things that could hurt somebody else's feelings. Like our family, we're pretty used to it. You know, if you know, say things straight, you know, like when Eli does it, we don't get offended, but we still want him to have good manners and things like that when he goes out in public and he interacts with other people. So that's one of the challenges that we are currently working on. Eli's strengths have always been in things that are extremely logical. He, numbers are amazing to him. He is currently doing math on a 4th and a 5th grade level, and he is in the 3rd grade. And with children with autism, there are certain things that even, you know, doctors and scientists don't really understand how they can speed, you know, light years ahead in certain areas, but in other areas they're so restricted or, you know, held back. For example, you know, like even socially, Eli does not fully comprehend sarcasm. You know, you can't really, you know, try to coax him or try to say something in a way that'll, you know, make him, you know, pay attention or anything of that nature. I know one day we were cleaning up his room, and I was whining. I'm like, I'm sitting here doing clean up all these toys by myself, and I didn't even make the mess. You know, most other kids would, you know, join in and be like, okay, Mom, I'll help you since I made the mess. Eli looks at me with a straight face and he gives me a thumbs up and say, hey, Mom, you're doing an awesome job all by yourself. Like, it doesn't even enter into his mind that he should help me clean up the mess that he made. So with autism, they're going to have strengths that, you know, wow you, and then they're going to have struggles that you're not fully going to comprehend, but it's just all a part of who they are. So you all, if you made it to the end of my video, thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you. I would love in the comments, if your family is going through this, I would love to help. I would love to talk to you. And I hope that my story, my family's perspective, or how we dealt with things could be of assistance to you. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. What is your name?
Torres.
And how old are you?
9 years old.
And can you tell me, what is your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing is Yellow Nintendo. It's like a new one. I like it so much. Okay. Then I could get a new one for my birthday. Blue Nintendo.
We'll see about that. And can you tell me, what is your best friend's name?
My best name is Amaya and Nani.
Okay, so Nani is my mom, his grandmother, and Amaya is my 20-year-old niece that is stationed in Germany right now. And if she is watching this, she's going to be ecstatic. So you made the best friend list, Maya. You guys, thank you so much for being here with us and listening to our story. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye. Bye.